So after the count of three, we're going to bring on the stage Jonathan Ashworth. Yeah?
Well, I'm your local MP. Once described by the Daily Mail as like a 1950s summer camp host, so we'll see tonight whether the Daily Mail was true or not. So I guess I'm here to do the political jokes. Problem with political jokes is we sometimes get elected. I don't know why you're clapping, you're the ones who elected me. So, I don't know if you watched the news today, but I can assure you I haven't demanded £100,000 to be here tonight because I'm not a sleazy Tory MP. Little bit of satire there, topical. So, when they asked me to do this, they said we wanted a Leicester political figure to take the piss out of, and we immediately thought of you. It's like, you know, where's Andrew Bridgen tonight? Is he washing his hair or something? But they tried to get Matt Hancock, but he said, sorry, I've got my hands full, bum. Nobody needed to see those photos, did they? Bloody hell. The thing about us politicians is we're not always intentionally funny, but we always tell the same jokes everywhere we go. And for many years, before I was fortunate enough to be elected as your Member of Parliament, I worked for Gordon Brown. Remember him, Gordon Brown? And everywhere Gordon Brown went, he used to tell the same joke. So, unlike the others who've come up with their own material, I'm just going to plagiarise his jokes for you. So everywhere Gordon Brown went, he would tell this joke, and Gordon Brown would start off this joke, it'd be like this. You know, the way he used to do this. Always used to do this with his hands and sort of growl. And he would tell this joke about the Swedish Social Democratic Prime Minister who went to visit President Reagan. And he would say, Olof Palme, the Swedish Social Democratic Prime Minister, went to visit President Reagan. And Reagan said, I'm not meeting that communist. To which his advisor said, no, Mr. President, he's an anti-communist. To which Reagan said, I don't care what kind of communist he is. Everywhere he went, he told that joke. But the thing about politicians is the most effective politicians are the ones who are the very best communicators. So Tony Blair. Remember Tony Blair? Yeah. He was always a good communicator. So when he was first elected, he went to the French Parliament and he delivered his speech in perfect, fluent French at the Parliament. And they were naturally impressed that a British Prime Minister had come along to the Parliament and spoke in French. And Tony Blair was so pleased that they were so impressed, he decided to do the press conference after the speech in French. And he said to the French journalists, you can ask your questions to me in French. And one of the French journalists said to him, Mr. Blair, what is your opinion of our Prime Minister, Lionel Jospin? And Tony Blair wanted to say, Lionel Jospin, I admire him in many ways, but this is where Tony Blair got a bit cocky, because in the translation, he actually said, I desire Lionel Jospin in many different positions. I mean, Boris Johnson went to Germany and said the same thing about Angela Merkel, but actually meant it. You know, he gets a bit frisky on these trips, so I'm told. There was another MP, she's retired now, but this is absolutely a true story. This MP was elected around 25 years ago. And so this was the days, if you think back, before the majority of your correspondence came in the post rather than email like it does today. And this is an absolutely true story. She went on the local radio, and the local radio, so she's just been elected for a few weeks, and the local radio said to her, so you've just been elected, what do you find is the most difficult thing about being an MP? And she said, it's absolutely true, she said on the local radio, the most difficult thing is waking up every morning and having to handle 8 inches of mail. I think Boris Johnson got in touch with her as well afterwards. It's absolutely true. And there's another story, again, to do with the local radio. So, by the way, BBC Leicester, if you're here tonight, why don't you get me on the radio more? I'm sick of always being Andrew Bridgen every week. But anyway, this is another true story. He's still an MP. And this MP represented a beautiful, or still does in fact, represented a beautiful Welsh constituency, beautiful valleys, beautiful countryside, fabulous, fabulous. And the local radio rang him and said to him, what is your opinion that your constituency has just been voted the dogging capital of Britain? And he said, I think it's absolutely marvellous. It's a brilliant way to get exercise. Being out in the fresh air. I like to do it myself when I can. But I have to take one of the neighbours. I mean, he obviously thought it was dog walking, bless him. He didn't realise what dogging was, bless him. And, absolutely true. But one of the best things about being a Member of Parliament is going around the constituency meeting people, doing events like this for charity. But one of the very best things about being a Member of Parliament is visiting schools, because children say the most wonderful things. Because the thing about children is they don't hold back. They will say what comes into their minds because they're so innocent and they're so creative. And as I visit schools in my Leicester constituency, children always say the most wonderful things. Like, it's usually something like, have I ever met Jamie Vardy? Or have I met the Queen? Or what sort of car do I drive? Or things like that. But there was a story, and it's not my story, but I wish it was, because I think it's such a lovely story that... It wasn't actually an MP's story. It was actually a professor who used to lecture in sort of education theory. And he tells this wonderful story about how when he went into a school, and there was a little girl, she was 6, and this little girl, the teachers would struggle to keep her interested in the lessons and so on. But when the teachers gave this little girl some paper, some crayons, some pencils and so on, the little girl was absolutely in her element, the 6-year-old, completely focused on her drawing. And this professor, and it's an absolutely true story, this professor was observing the class, and he was observing the way this little girl was completely in her element, and he said to her, "What are you drawing?" And this little 6-year-old said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." To which he said to her, "But nobody knows what God looks like." To which she said, "Well, they will in a minute." And that's the thing, isn't it? Children will just say the most wonderful things. Look, I've been a pound shop Peter Kay for you tonight, but I want to thank you so much for not booing me off the stage. And that MP still walks his dog on a Friday and Saturday night. At least that's his excuse. Thank you very much. Good night.
Jonathan Ashworth!